Good evening, and welcome to Soluble, America's Political Central. Today is January the 4th in the year of our Lord 2023. We thank you for joining us. Um, the title of tonight's podcast will be Focusing In, as in, not being distracted by all the noise, being able to block out the noise and actually focus in on, where we're trying to go with a sense of urgency as far as, Democratic voters, um, you know, the 90 something odd percentile of African Americans that participate in it. Now, excuse me, as I said, classified documents, is still, front and one of the front and center stories here. I think they found some with, in the former vice president's residence here today or yesterday at some point in time. But if when it comes to being distracted, discouraged, easily swayed, disillusioned, do not let any of this enter into your thought or head. If President Biden was dripping with corruption as the former president, carried himself in a way where he always had something to hide. If President Biden owned a hotel in the middle of Washington, D.C., that, world leaders, when they travel to the United States, that was their main destination. If President Biden had been impeached twice, if President Biden had not shown his taxes, hesitated to show his taxes, said things that undermined our institutions, and caused the American people to lose faith in the system, or cause our faith to be somewhat shaken. If President Biden had, threatened the school, his former school where he went, that, if they exposed his grades, he was going to sue him, just for releasing his grades. If President Biden had done any of the above, then, this would be very relevant. If President Biden wasn't cooperating, he's going about, his business, doing the people's business as best he can. As best he can. I mean, and at best, it's, inexcusable negligence, inexcusable sloppiness, however you want to label it. That, the documents are being found. Nothing about this smells of espionage, treason, where, in the words of the former president's lawyer, Michael Cohen, the president might take these classified documents and we could risk him be willing to sell them for, a pack of stamps, something so cheap as a pack of stamps or something, in the words of, the former president's lawyer. Then we would have a situation. Then we would have a situation that's newsworthy, that's worthy of getting our attention to say, this is who we voted for and what we voted for. Let's check it. Because at the end of the day, that's what we have to do. No matter what, we have to check it. Now, as I said, it's meant to get you confused. But to Democratic voters, we know what the mission is. We know that America is, coming out of a pandemic, and slowly but surely, slowly but steadily, things are becoming normal again. Things are becoming normal again, like there were in a time where politicians reached across the aisles. I mean, and that's our goal here at Soluble, is to get it back to, the way it used to be. We don't want a new normal of alternative facts. Everything is fake or a witch hunt. It's so much smoke here that it can't be. It's too much smoke for it to just be a witch hunt or a hoax. Your cabinet officials or people associated with you all around are getting locked up or under indictment or facing jail time. We know what that's like. We know what it's like. So that's our goal here. As I said, to get back to where politicians did more working across the aisles than they did with name calling, creating a new normal of, as I said, alternative facts, um, you know, slamming investigations, just taking things behind closed doors and trying to keep it concealed when it comes to the people's business. Flushing documents down the toilet, ripping documents up into little small pieces. I mean, these are the people's documents. So this is why, we feel it's necessary here at Soluble to really focus in. And as I said, whereas, we see these head games, these smoke and mirror tricks that, the Republicans like to have a fake outrage, and all of a sudden, they're taking classified documents serious, and, they're respecting the FBI's work. It can't be, where it's not across the board. Because, as I said, we have to have our mind made up. We have to be clearly focused on our agenda, no matter what. And this is just, one out of many. But, as I said, if you know the playbook, you know this is meant to confuse, to distract. And so, the question is, in focusing in, where are we moving to? Where are we moving to? And our view here at Soluble is, post Donald J. Trump, to never go back again to that point in time. I mean, let's face it. The Democratic vote is going to be attacked again. It's always challenged. It's always where, the Republicans want to question it versus going out and making the case and winning over Democratic voters to the conservative side. It's always, about trying to take away the right to vote. In an election year, they have a trick up their sleeve, some kind of way to suppress the vote. So, in not having to ever face that again, if we're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if we're sick and going back and forth, then, the thing to do now is to get focused and move forward. In a point in time in history where we really rocked the vote, and we shut down what could have been 4 more Trump years. We shut that down. So we see that democracy works when you participate in it. It works when you participate in it. And, we're here to challenge that Democratic Party, that party of middle class working Americans, on the issues that, we want to make sure that are brought to the forefront, so that we don't have to be sick and tired of being sick and tired anymore. As I've stated on past podcasts, people of color often, have the saying where, we've come a long way, but we still have a long ways to go. Now, we understand, or we should understand, that we shut down the Trump years. We shut down 4 more Trump years. And so we should understand clearly that the distance that remains for us to travel to get where we want to be consistently, to no more be sick and tired of being sick and tired, is from your residence or job, what have you, to your nearest voting booth, to your nearest voting precinct. That's it. We've come a long way, but we still have a long ways to go. Okay, November 2020, you went the distance. You stopped 4 more years of a dangerous presidency, a clear and present dangerous presidency. You stopped it. You shut it down. So, therefore, democracy works. Therefore, that's your best weapon to no more be sick and tired of being sick and tired. So, this is the path of least resistance that we here at Soluble stress. This is the path of least resistance, as I just evidenced with shutting down the years. What more can you say? You know, if you could stop a former corrupt president who doesn't mind setting so-called minorities back in this country, putting laws on the books that will do little to nothing for so-called minorities in this country. You stopped it in its tracks, thanks to your participation. But fortunately, I won't say unfortunately, but fortunately, you know, you get to do it every 2, 4, 6 years. You know, go out and make your voice heard. And, you know, that's the system that we live in. So, you know, if in focusing in, you should not have to complain anymore, because you know we the Democratic voters, especially the 90 something odd percentile of people of color, you know, we have to form that block. We have to form that block and encourage other people of color to join and see the wisdom in doing so. We want the path of least resistance here. We want the path of least resistance. Least resistance to what? To getting us to the point where we're respected just like any other American citizen. We don't have to feel like, you know, we're unfairly getting booted off of a plane. You know, unfairly being singled out for, you know, having some frivolous police call because we don't look like we belong. Anything that has to do with discrimination in jobs and housing, police brutality, the path of least resistance to get to the point where we experience it no more. None of the above. You know, any of the things that, you know, that we've been singled out for before, and we knew that it was simply because we were Negroes in America, people of color in America. That's where we want to go. Now, you know, it's evidence, and we spoke on it, and we're going to touch up on it again later. You know, we're here dealing with two parties, well, three in a literal sense. We're dealing with three parties, but the main two here that are seesaw battling and tug of warring for our vote or for power, if you will, in this country, with two different ideals of governing, is the Democrats and the Republicans. So, you know, as people of color voting in this country, we see plainly what both parties have to offer. You know, and you know, these little you know, these little gimmick gestures, these little, you know, small token gestures that we get from the Republican Party, like say for instance, you know, the former president, he did something with the sentencing laws, you know, and reduce the sentencing laws or something to make time shorter in prison and for incarceration. Okay, on top of that, the cherry on top, which it should be, that's good. That's the cake. That's the bread, and it's good. But the cherry on top with the icing should be to assure that when these people come out, or once they're done with their prison sentence, that they can be rehabilitated into society very easily. Do they get jobs? You know, what kind of opportunities awaits them? So it's one thing to, as a token gesture, as I said, do something with the sentencing laws to make them lighter or to make them more fair. But it's a whole nother thing also to from the federal level. If you really want to do something, you know, to put some teeth in it, also ensure that, you know, they have a way to ease themselves back into the system, being backed by the federal government. You know, you know, maybe an approach where, you know, the released inmate makes two steps and the federal government makes one until he can stand on his own 2 feet. We're not here to suggest anything in the form of financial assistance, but you know, maybe there could be a program there that awaits the ex-con, if you will, that says, you know, this place is only for ex-cons. This place is a second chance place for people who have broken the law and done their time, and this place is only for them. This is a way to give. This is that second chance. And without it, as I said, token gestures. So, you know, neither party is perfect, but the path of least resistance, our position here at Soluble is, of course, the Democratic Party. Um, it's offered too much. It's offered a more leveler playing field. So focusing in as far as these things that are popping up that become sensationalized by the media. The worst mistake we can make would be to become distracted by it, to become caught up in it. As I said, what about the things that we hold near and dear? You know, to take that path of least resistance, as I mentioned earlier. But we should have serious issues that we won't address when we're focusing in and not getting distracted. I mean, our position here is Soluble. Just for a few: guns, um, education, fairness, and housing. Those are three right there that we can focus steadfastly on and don't get sidetracked. We know that we're dealing with in Senator Sinema and Senator Manchin. We're dealing with two very iffy senators that might shake the foundation of our solid majority. That makes it harder for us to pass legislation. But guns, classified documents aside, my God, we're killing ourselves daily. We did it on the issue day of last year. But gun legislation is very serious. And it should be, on the forefront of all our agendas. Especially, all Americans. All Americans. I'm not gonna say especially. But in the situation where this 94 something percentile, I mean, we could be under attack. We could be just out shopping. Like our brothers and sisters in Buffalo. We can be out worshiping, like our brothers and sisters in South Carolina. So, this is, a major reason when we look at these things, we owe it to those on the other side who left in such a tragic way, in such a sudden and cold-hearted and unfair way. We owe it to them not to get distracted, not to get caught up in the hype of classified documents all of a sudden, as if it's the order of the day. Gun control legislation. Now, we know that of the two major parties, we know where they stand. And one of the main reasons why we need to stay focused is so that we keep a majority, and we keep chipping away, and we keep chipping away. It may not happen in 2 years, it may not happen in 4 years, but if we diligently vote, if we put the vote before the protest, the vote just as important as a sporting event, the Super Bowl. Voting just as important as the NBA Finals. Then we'll get there eventually. We'll get there eventually. It took us 4 years to get the former president out, but eventually we got him out. There were sacrifices made. Shamefully so, regrettably so, sadly so. There were sacrifices made in those 4 years. And we owe it to them. We owe it to those sacrificial lambs who had to pay the price for a corrupt, bigoted, misogynistic, instigating president that played a major role in turning America upside down. That to the point where these lives could be taken with the things that were stirred up. And we see it now. We've always known that a mind is a terrible thing to waste, but we definitely saw it in this administration, how one man could come into politics and all of a sudden turn things so volatile. And lo and behold, it's not to demonize or unfairly call out or single out. But lo and behold, he was a Republican. He was put up by the Republican Party to serve this country. This is what they offered up to us, to you and me, the American people. A corrupt, shady in everything that he touched. You don't threaten to sue, the former college you went to, Wharton Business School or something of that nature. You don't threaten to sue for releasing your grades if you don't have anything to hide. You do the best that you can, and you live with what you get. If you're going to school and your grades are, not what you think they should be, or not up to the standard that they need to be to pass, then you study harder. So, we need to stay focused because of that path of least resistance. Republicans are not going to do anything when it comes to gun control legislation. Although, the natives are no longer restless and the British are not coming. But these semi-automatic weapons that are on the street, the Republicans have no desire to stop it. It's the Second Amendment gone wild. And, we as Democratic voters and as Democrats, period, we have to have the common enough sense to stay diligent and stay focused and don't get distracted by all the noise. Be able to block out the noise. And if you can do that, we win. We win every time because you're able to, zero in on what's important. The importance of a 2/3 majority and what it takes to keep it and what it gets you. What it gets you in this country. It gets you a lot. You see that what the president has accomplished thus far. Even with two reluctant senators or two senators who he didn't know which way they would show up or if they would show up at all. But he's got a lot done, and he's still got work to do on behalf of the American people. So that's we're asking you to concentrate with this particular podcast as far as focusing in and see the importance of it. As I said, education, fairness in housing. What may be first and foremost on your political agenda for your state, for your city, for your district? We're if we're going to fully play the game, we have to play it to win. Now, in times past or up to now, the American government has been used to, especially Democratic voters of that 90-something percentile, people of color, to vote, and then that's it. Vote and then take a wait and see approach. But now you must vote and continue to stay active. You see, but don't wait. You actually see, but don't wait. And then once you see, you go to typing on your keyboard. You pick up the phone, and we have to make them do their job. We have to make them do their job and remind them. You have these young kids now who do these so-called flash mobs where they show up in droves. That's going to probably be one of the things that we have to do is to show up and make noise. But at the end of the day, we're enjoying America in a sense as if we were any other American. There's no more of this. Well, it's because I'm a Negro, or I'm being targeted for this or that reason. Because, we have to see now that America realizes, first of all, that the world is watching, and they're cleaning up their act. These cops are getting charged. Sadly and bewildering, enough. This case that happened in Memphis here last week. This was brother on brother. So We've never tried to play the race card with it, but I mean, as surprising as it is, we see the problem. We see the problem, but to get past that, and as I said, to live as, we oftentimes say that, you don't know my experience, or, this is happening to me because I'm a Negro or I'm a person of color. The vote can help you get past all that. The vote can help you get past all that. And then that's what we have to realize as, Democratic voters in the 90 something percentile, because, we'll have these serial complainers, these non-voters who are serial complainers, and they're not, they have no interest in participating in democracy, but they'll constantly complain. They'll go in the grocery store and complain. They'll complain at the gas pump. And this is how you recognize them, because people who are actually going out and voting and voting in change, they don't complain. They may encourage somebody else to vote. They may strike up a conversation about voting or about a candidate or about the political climate, but they're not complaining. So this is one of the ways that you recognize a non-voter to the Democratic voters, the 90 something percentile African American people of color in particular. If we take that 90 something odd percentile, think about it. Think about it. That's a large quantity. That's a very large quantity of votes that are going towards one particular party. So what do we do now when we know that we vote in that percentage number? We have to encourage everybody to participate, because it's one thing to say that we're in the 90 something percentile voting for Democrats, and then another way to look at it also is that in that 95 percentile per se, you have, let's put a number out there, 60 million eligible voters in that 90 something percentile. And of that 60 million eligible voters, only 40 million of them are showing up. Then it's of little to no effect. So we know the difference that it can make, rocking the vote. So, the best thing that we can do is when we hear them complain, that should be one of our first questions now moving forward in the year 2023 and beyond. Because in most cases when they're complaining, they're not voting. They're not voting. Are we going to play the game to win? And that's the question that we as Democrats, especially in that 90 something percentile people of color, are we going to play the game to win? Now, if we play it in a way that is, more or less bordered on mediocrity, then we're not going to win. If our turnout is always mediocre, we're not going to win. So, that's the question. Do you continue to complain, or do you go all in and participate in order to bring about that change in America that affords the Negro an everyday life of comfort without harassment, threat thereof, discrimination in any shape, form, or fashion, and take America to a place where the best man qualified gets the job. That's the America that we want to see for future America, for Negroes in America. A comfort lifestyle as would be enjoyed by any other American. Where as I said, I'm being singled out because I'm a Negro. This is happening to me because I'm a Negro. We can make that go away. We can make privilege fair and even across the board, where there's no such thing again as so-called white privilege. But the only way to do it, or the path to least resistance, I say, is to rock the vote, to go out and vote every time. So to the hardcore voters in the Democratic Party who know that, this party offers the best way out, the best way to enjoy life as any other American does. Let's communicate it. Let's communicate it. And that's, as I said, that's one of the signs to look for. That's definitely identifier. Is a serial complainer, someone who's complaining all the time, especially a person of color. Another way to know, to gauge or get a good gauge on whether a person of color is a voter or not is to listen for when they're talking about something going on in their neighborhood, in their city, in their community. They're always referring to they. They building this over there. Are they getting ready to stop this here? Are they getting ready to tear this down? Who is they? Now, is it a herd of cattle? With this pronoun, they. Who is it in particular? So this is what you look. This is another thing that you look for in the non-voter. In the non-voter. I mean, when they speak in terms of they getting ready to do this or they getting ready to do that, because the American voter is, by all accounts, pretty much informed. No one is hardly ever, and I could be wrong here, but by most accounts, voters are informed. They know where they stand on the issues. They know that the things that they're voting for, the policies on which they're voting or trying to vote out, the laws that are on the books that they want to get rid of. They pretty much know. So when you hear a person of eligible voting age constantly referring to something that's happening in their neighborhood, in their state, and they're saying they doing this or they doing that, then you can pretty much 9 times out of 10 go figure that they're not voting. And the best thing that we can do is, reach out a helping hand, and hopefully they'll take it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so, in focusing on the things that you desire, for your country, and then as it works on down from you to your state, to your city, don't get distracted. And you have to understand something. If as I said, with the riots, with the January 6th riots, if the Democratic Party, which is, a party that is for all walks of life in America, if they're doing something and the Republicans are angry, then more likely it's good for all of America. It's good for all of America, all walks of life, all races, all stripes. And you have to look for that. That's a sign to know that, it's kind of like, if I tell a person I'm going right, and I know they're trying to deceive me, and I say, well, I'm going right, but I know I'm going left, that type of thing. So that's a way to gauge where you're doing something right. Now, they're not upset. They're not changing their ways. That's not to say that you're doing something wrong, but as I say, when we slowly but surely begin to chip away at a better America for all Americans, but especially, us, the 94 percentile that vote Democrat, people of color. When we begin to chip away, then we make change. We create change. And this is the first and foremost way. It's the American way. It's the American way. Now, can it be designed to be, cumbersome, designed to wear you down, confuse you? Is it designed to cause you to have to, read up, get yourself, up to speed on each and every candidate and what they stands for? It is what it is. It is what it is. This is the price for freedom. from freedom from any kind of discrimination, racial prejudice. This is the price. And it's a cheaper price than blood. It's a cheaper price than blood. A voting ballot. Fill it out, cast your ballot, and go on your way. Each and every person participating. The path of least resistance. The path to get those things accomplished that we desire as Negroes in America, without bloodshed. We have opportunity here now to vote them in. We here at Soluble, we've shown you we've evidenced it to you how your vote changes things, how your vote makes a difference. So now, serial complainers, be gone. Eligible voters who are not voting, to those of us who are, we have to educate them. And then, if they choose not to still vote, then we have to move on. We have to move on. But we can't mix with them, so to speak. We can't mix with them, so to speak. We have to still be forcefully vocal in getting things done. And most likely they'll play catch up. They'll play catch up as we begin to show them, with living proof that this is the difference that we're making. Now, since November 2020, as I said, you see a whole different temper in America. The temperature's been lowered. The temperature's been lowered. And it is, don't get me wrong, before the former president even got in office, there was this thing about this subject about the browning of America. But as I've said, when it comes to things like the Great Replacement and things like that, don't believe the hype, because that's just what it is. God has given all of mankind the commandment to go forth and be fruitful and replenish the earth. So we know that, that's, we're going to call it BS here at Soluble. We're going to call it BS because, as I said, the Creator has, given us all the commandment and instruction to go forth. But the temperature has really been lowered. You see a better political climate. You see a more calmer American society. You see justice more swiftly being served. And you see it being served more fairly. These officers who last week in Memphis, killed this citizen. Not only were they fired, but I'm sure charges are going to be forthcoming. I mean, just like our audience and the rest of our fellow Americans, we're gonna stay tuned. We're gonna keep a watchful eye on it. But this is what the vote has bought you. Back from the brink. Back from the brink. And there's no better system in the world, a system of government that we see than a democracy where the people's vote and then their voices are heard, through their vote as to who we want to be led by. And that's the way it's been, from the days of way back. The Hebrew Israelites, asked for a king. They requested a king, someone to lead them. So it goes way back. And so here we are today in the year of our Lord 2023, and we're living under a democracy. But all throughout time, as I said, it's been kings. It's been people have been led by queens. They have been led by armies, dictators. But here in America, in this day and time, we live in a democracy. And, it's not automatic. It's not without, some degree of study as far as if you're going to make an informed vote. If you're going to make an informed vote. And that's what, we're asking here tonight at Soluble, is to, try to continue to keep you informed, to keep you on your toes. even though we're in between election cycles now. What, okay, so there's no voting going on, but now is the time to find the local officials in your district. They say all politics are local. So, now is the time to form a communication, if you will, with your local politicians who he or she may be able to or should be able to help you work your way on up the ladder to the state politicians, on up to the federal politicians. So you start out local, you form a correspondence, form a communication, if you will. You get information from the locals about the state. You start rubbing elbows with your state officials. Then from the state officials, you get information about how to deal with the federal. And then before long, there you have it. You have a hotline for yourself between local, state, and federal elected public officials. And if you choose not to participate or get involved, and you're content with, just going to work every day, coming home, and letting the chips fall where they may, then if it spins out of control again, if we go into something that even closely resembles the former president, then what can you say? So before it's too late, maybe we need to try to get as many of us as we can to participate. Some say democracy is in shambles. Some say democracy is threatened. And it's quite possible that it's all of the above. And so, here's the most powerful voting block as far as numbers, as far as percentages. Because, you can't have 90 something odd percent of Caucasians in America voting Democrat and then 90 something odd percent of them voting Republican. That vote is split pretty much. I'm not going to say it's split down the middle. I'm not going to say it's 50-50. But you have a certain number of Caucasians voting Republican and you have a certain number voting Democrat. But you can best believe that of those two, neither one is voting 90% for one or the other. That's only people of color. So, you have to look at the power and ability that you have to make the pendulum swing in your favor. And then you have to use it to your advantage. It's one thing to have it. It's another thing to use it. Two totally different things altogether. We have it. We have it right here at our fingertips. Now, when we don't use it, we see things like, we see presidents coming along like the former president when we don't use it. I spoke on one of my podcasts last year and tried to point out to you that this is what minority rule looks like. And how you can get a minority rule in a country where the majority rules. So it's up to you. We're trying to paint the picture, and then we know once we get it painted, we hope you can see clearly. But can you imagine the days gone by of no more being sick and tired of being sick and tired by rocking the vote? And if it hasn't happened yet, maybe it's because we haven't rocked the vote consistently enough. We did it 8 years for President Obama. We did it not 8 years, I beg your pardon. We did it twice. We went out and rocked the vote twice, hard. But the saga continues. In this democracy, that's how it lives. That's how it flourishes. With new eligible voters, voters are dying, and then voters are being born. Voters are eligible. Voters become ineligible. But in this day and time, at this point in time in history, we, the Democratic Party, are going to have to make that decision, make that choice to outvote Republicans as it relates to a healthy democracy. As it relates to a healthy democracy. I mean, we see now, you know, it's the day is the 24th of January. So the Republicans have had the majority, what, some 21 days? And we gotta look at, you know, what's to become. What's to become. Um we have, committee assignments being doled out, if you will, amongst the Republican majority. We have, Democrats being stripped of seats. Pay attention, really pay attention to what's going on. We're 21 days in, as I said. We know that Representative-elect Marjorie Taylor Greene, we know she's on major committee assignments, and all the other, parts of the insurrectionist caucus that Speaker McCarthy surrendered to. You have, Democratic representative-elects who served in the military, and they're being kicked off of committee assignments, being removed from committees. What best serves the country? What best serves the country? For Democratic voters, the 90-something percentile, people of color in particular, right now, what serves us best is to stay focused in. To stay focused in and not be distracted. It's designed to beat you down and make you give up. And so here we are in this pivotal moment in time. We don't know what, the Republicans have to offer up after the former president. He's still relevant because he's announced his candidacy. No Republicans have come out and condemned him. So, we know that they're still afraid of him. They're still afraid of him. And, is he still the de facto leader of the Republican Party? Been impeached twice? They know he's no good for the country as far as leadership. You can take the man out of New York, but you can't take New York out of the man. And they learned it the hard way. But we as Democrats, lest we forget, what does progress look? We have to ask ourselves, what does progress look like? Not just in this day and time, between now and the next election cycle, but what does progress look like down the road, 10, 20 years from now, 30 years from now? That's a lot of voting. That's a lot of voting, but we can do it. We have to, because, there's our position here is soluble, and we're going to do everything we can to make this mentality spread. Is that, there's no time for complaining now, because if we vote, we get what we want. When we vote in large numbers, if we want Trump out, we vote in large numbers, we get him out. And we see what we have. When we look at the two parties, the two heavyweight parties, you see the Supreme Court now. You have names like Ketanji, Sotomayor, Elena Kagan. This is what the Democratic Party looked like: inclusion, women, so-called minorities. But at the end of the day, here's what we should be pushing for more than anything as Democrats. Not important as so much as race or gender, but qualifications. That's where we win, and that's how we win. So that whomever it may be, it doesn't matter you know, whether it's religion, race, sexual orientation, who is best qualified to serve in said role? You know, whether it be Supreme Court, whether it be the Oval Office, senators, what have you. And we see that after former President Trump, after former President W. Bush, we don't know what we'll get from this party. You know, is it the best man? Is it the best conservative for the job, or is it a popularity contest? And this is what we're running against. It's a roll of the dice. It's a roll of the dice. Now, the last two Republican presidents has been more or less a popularity contest and name recognition. Bush name recognition, and then, you know, the former President Trump, you know, he won a popularity contest. He didn't win on, you know, the merits. He didn't win on, you know, how good his qualifications were. He didn't win on a track record of, you know, Harvard Law, military general, military lieutenant, serve here, serve there. No, it's been a popularity contest, and instead of, you know, having to react ever again for those who suffered, and you know as well as I do that, you know, during the last presidency, during the Trump administration, there was a lot of suffering going on in this country. For the first time ever, we've seen a sitting president with the blood of American citizens on his hands. We've never seen anything like that before in our lifetimes. Not of its own citizens. So blatant, so carelessly. Where words have power. No measurement of them. No toning down of them. And so, you know, we see plainly and clearly what we voted out. And, you know, we also should recognize and realize that, you know, we're still up against it. And so, you know, it comes to a question of, are we going to be proactive or reactive? Now we reacted. We reacted. And we voted the former president out. And we shut down 4 years that, you know, could have plunged America into a civil war or to a democracy no more. When countries around the world, when people around the world, nations around the world were looking to America to show them the democratic way, we almost lost it. So, proactive or reactive? Now, if we're reacting, and this is to all Democratic voters, but the 90-something percentile in particular, are we going to react or are we going to be proactive? We see what both gets us. We see what both gets us. You know, proactive, we stopped the red wave. This red wave that was so talked about, so touted before the midterms last year. We stopped it. Being proactive. Being proactive. The people of Georgia rose up, you know, and say we won't elect a stunt. We won't, you know, put a stunt in the office of senator with no track record, with no qualifications whatsoever. But the Republican Party was willing to do so. And we must remember that, you know, the candidate only lost by 2 percentage points. By 2 percentage points. So there you have it. In closing, you know, we're dealing with two parties, as I said. Which one gives us the best path of least resistance to end racism and oppression in America as we know it? To the Democratic voters, the 90-something odd percentile in particular. You know, we've given you evidence. We've given you proof. You see it for yourselves. The so-called minority inclusion. We have to run towards a party if we're going to participate. I mean, and we're dealing with governance here. So, you know, if we're not voting, then, you know, we're giving others a green light to govern us or to speak for us. And, you know, we know what that looks like in the past. The voices are silent. The voices are not speaking truth to power on our behalf. So we're dealing with governance here. We're talking about governance when it comes to voting and participating. So if you're not, then as I said, you're allowing others to speak for you, to say what's best for you when they don't know your story. They don't walk in your shoes. But that can only happen in America if now you have to realize if you don't vote, if you don't participate, the power is yours. If you choose not to use it, then there's no finger pointing. There is no, you know, glass half empty approach. Well, it is for the non-voter. But for those of us who are voting, we have to see that because of what we done, because of how we stopped 4 years, the glass is always half full when we turn out. When we turn out. And that's, you know, what it takes in this country to end the pain and suffering, the misery that we've often endured or often had to tolerate in daily life in America. So, you know, it's right here. It's right in front of you. Are you going to be competent enough, determined enough to take the bull by the horns and vote? And you know, we spoke earlier, and we're going to touch bases on it again. You know, because the two sticking points that we know that African Americans have with the Democratic Party is, you know, the LGBTQ community. All is the Democratic Party the party of entitlements in the form of welfare and food stamps for children that, you know, that are on the taxpayer's dime, and there's not a responsible adult in sight, but these children are being brought into the world. We get it. We get it. We've discussed it, and you know, the discussion, you know, it goes on. It continues. But at the end of the day, we have to have a solution. We have to know that as humans, there is a solution. There is a solution there. But you know, we don't get the solution by running away and avoiding the problem. The best way to get the solution to the sticking points that we have is to talk about it, to discuss it. Now, as I said, when it comes to entitlements, you know, in the form of welfare, a program started back in the 1930s because of the Great Depression. The jobs and economy got better, and this program, you know, became worse, right, with fraud. When it comes to gay marriage, LGBTQ community issues, you know, the American position, not being politicized, not pointing the finger at Democrats or Republicans. The American position is that you can't legislate morals. So, as Democratic voters, we can't say that, you know, the Democratic Party is embracing this. It's the American way, and the best thing that we can do is negotiate it, and at the end of the day, pray. But as I said, you know, it's been going on since the beginning of time, and it's been condemned by men of Christian faith, men of the Islamic faith. And you know, how do we get there? When it comes to, you know, LGBTQ community issues, at best we can say that the Democratic Party is the party of love. And when it comes to the Republican Party, they're the party of hate. You know, for those of us who are bound by our faith, as we are here at Soluble, we can say that the Democratic Party loves too much, or they love everybody. But love is better than hate. Love is better than hate. You can more than likely negotiate with love or through love than you can through hate. And so that's where it's at, when it comes to LGBTQ issues and the other sticking point with Negro voters in America who vote Democrat, which is entitlements. We're not for it. We're not here at Soluble. We understand. We feel you. We feel your pain. I mean, we're taxpaying citizens just as our listeners are, having to foot the bill, for these entitlement programs. And that's something that the Republicans are very good at selling. That the Democratic Party is the party of entitlements, and that makes them tax and spend liberals. And we have to look at it factually. We have to look at it factually. And as I said, since all politics are local, we start with our local elected officials. We let them know how we feel. Here at Soluble, we're going to propose that entitlements in the form of welfare and food stamps stop being carelessly dispensed out to American citizens in 10 years. No woman is carrying a child for that length of time, from now on this date, January 24th, 2023, till 10 years from now, on January 24th, 2033. No woman is carrying a child that long. So our proposal is that, if we can get something on the books between now and 10 years from now that says, in 10 years from the drafting of this legislation, entitlements will be over. That's where we should be wanting to go as Democrats. And in 10 years, we'll see better American families. We will see this burden being taken off of the taxpayer. We will see, less fraud, less crime in America, like a breath of fresh air. And 10 years is plenty of time for us as human beings to get our act together. And as I said, conceive more responsibly. It's a good thing. And we know that this is not going to happen at the drop of a hat. We know that this is not, something that we're going to wake up in, a few months and it's going to be the law of the land. But it's a great start. We at Soluble, we feel like it's a great start. We feel like it's a great proposal to try to end entitlements in the forms of welfare and food stamps when it comes to careless sexual behavior in 10 years. In 10 years. And we're going to talk about it, and we're going to keep you informed as to what progress that we could be possibly making as we connect with our local officials and begin to have that conversation. We're gonna take that one on the chin for the American people, for the Democratic voters, and try to get some kind of legislation drafted around that idea. That's the least we can do, because if it's something that we as human beings created, as far as a problem, a situation where it's not good for us as a society, as human beings, then we have the power to fix it. We have the power to solve it. You have to believe that. Now, in closing, we have two parties. Of course, here at Soluble, we're staunchly Democrat. And we're going to call a spade from a Democratic Party point of view. Will the Republicans do the same? Or will they fake outrage? Or will they fake patriotism? Only when it's in, the conservative interest. So we have these two parties. And, we know when it comes to that 90-something percentile, people of color, we know where we're trying to go. Let's zero in, let's stay focused in, and know that The path of least resistance is to rock the vote. The party to go through is the Democratic Party, because the Republicans have shown us nothing otherwise. A states' rights party is a party that we run to, and they're studied running away from us. And we're going to discuss it. Up next is a very much Trump acolyte in Governor Ron DeSantis, who may be the next up for the GOP nominee for president. A Trump Jr., just more polished. Just more polished. Just a little. So, the beat goes on with the Republican Party. The beat goes on. We don't know what we're going to get in the form of, integrity. Respect for our institutions. No shady backdoor deals. We don't know what we're going to get right now. And it is proof because, they haven't taken any concrete steps to, vote Representative-elect Santos out, among other things. So focus in. That's our request tonight. We're just fresh into a new year, but we have a chance to make a new beginning. We stopped the red wave, and even though Republicans share, hold 1/3 of power in government, we still, hold more power. We still have the ability to stop any insane legislation or bills that are being drafted that doesn't work for all of America, the rich and the poor. No matter what gender, no matter what race, that works for all America and levels the playing field and gives everybody a fair opportunity. That is the Democratic Party as we know it. And if not, then show us otherwise. Show us what you got. Show us what you got. If the debt ceiling is really a problem, rescind the Trump's tax cuts, or give us good solid information as to why we should cut this program or that program when it was raised several times under President Trump without any stipulations or without any request that you don't do this or you don't do that, or you raise it on these conditions. A fair and level playing field. Of the two parties, the Democratic Party is going to give it to you more even-handedly, more often than the Republican Party. And if there's anyone that begs to differ, we welcome that debate. We'd like to thank you for joining us tonight on this segment, Focusing In. Nothing is more important. We're going to keep you aware of any distractions. Anytime there's a red herring, we're going to make you aware of it so that you don't get distracted. If we want this country to go forward, the world is dependent on it, because the world is looking towards America for leadership and guidance. And so, right now, in this day and age, we know that the Democratic Party can take us there. And that's why they hold 2/3 of power in the American government. And we have to keep it so. We have to keep it so. But it remains to be seen, what will happen with, Representative-elect Santos. We know that the first bill out of the gate was something towards the IRS for the 1% and the 1% only. Nothing that proposes a pay increase or minimum wage increase for the working class America. Maybe there are some areas of the country that have a good livable wage based on the prices in that part of the country. But if there's some that don't, what's the problem? Why can't we get a minimum wage bill drafted to bring on the House floor for working class Americans? So, as I said, we beg to differ. We feel like the Democratic Party, the party of middle class America, that works from the middle class up is the best approach. And so, that's why we're staunchly there. We'll continue to discuss, LGBTQ issues, gay marriage, and entitlements. We can have that debate to see, which party best leads us to that better place when it comes to us as a society, us as taxpaying citizens. Thank you for joining us tonight. We look forward to coming at you again later on this week with another podcast. Stay informed, stay aware, and we're always here. Our plan is to be here for the duration, to keep you informed, to keep you in the know. And, as I said, and will always defend, voting is better than protest. So, get registered and get ready. This is Soluble signing off. We'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. We say good night and God bless. Thank you.